Okay, we're going to do a little bit of hand sewing to finish up this project. So you're going to need a length of some all-purpose thread, just a 1.5 foot or so is going to be plenty. So you're going to take your hand needle, and there's a small eye on one end. So I'm going to thread my needle, and then I'm going to pull my two thread ends even. So I have the ends of my thread even, and I'm going to hold those together, and I'm going to tie a knot. So I'm holding both threads so it's doubled over. There's a loop up here where my needle is. I'm holding them even here, and I'm going to tie a knot. I like to do more than one right on top of each other, just so that it's a little bit bigger and resists pulling through the fabric. So you can see here I'm just tying another knot right in the same place, and I'm going to try one more. Okay, so I've tied the two ends of my thread together, and here's my needle. So let's say I have this piece of fabric with a gap in it. So I've sewn with my machine on the inside here and here, but now I have a gap I need to close up with my hand sewing. So the first thing to know is I'm going to start by pulling the needle through the inside, from the inside, okay, of this gap, rather than just poking it through the outside. Because if I do it this way and pull it, my knot, is going to be right here with the thread showing, and I want to be able to tuck my thread ends inside. So I'm going to find where the machine stitches end, and really close to that through one of my layers, I'm going to stick my hand needle up so that my knot and the tails can end up inside, so I can tuck those in the gap that I have and end up right here. Now I'm going to talk about two different stitches. You can use either one you want. Both of these are very simple. There are a lot of ways to do hand sewing, but I'm just going to show you two of them. So one is called just a whip stitch, and so you're just going to come up from the bottom through all layers over and over again, and you'll see the thread visible on the outside of your fabric. So you basically just keep looping and pulling your thread around until it loops around the outside edge. So I'm just coming up from the bottom every time, and it's creating that loop around the outside edge, and that will secure my edge closed. One thing is that you want them fairly close together so that your stuffing and things don't come out from the inside. So you're going to keep those pretty tight and close together. I'm going to show you the next one on this same piece of fabric. Now you wouldn't normally mix these stitches like I'm going to do, but because this is just a tutorial and I want to show you the other stitch, I'm just going to leave this thread on here. So the way that I would do the other one is, sometimes it's called a ladder stitch, is I would stick my needle through the fold of this one side. Okay, so you can see it's all just on the one side of this gap. So I stick my needle in and out of this one side, and then I'm going to stick it in and out of the other side. And when I pull that together, it's going to be invisible. It's not going to be like these where I can see them on the outside. It's going to hide everything inside. So I'm going to cross over. I just did it on the top fold, so I'm going to go in and back out in a small stitch right along the fold or the crease. And when I pull that tight, you can see that those stitches are very hard to see. I'm sewing on felt, which is quite thick, so they're pulling apart if I don't keep it really taut, but you can see the whips where the whip stitch loops around the outside. The ladder stitch keeps everything on the inside. So I'm just going to keep going down, up, and then down, up on the other side. And to finish this off, you can do this method with either one. You're basically going to tie a knot with your thread itself. So I'm going to stitch this under, do a stitch, very small. But when I'm pulling up this thread or needle, you can see I'm left with a loop right here. So I'm going to stick my needle through that loop, and that's going to tie a little knot right there on the end. And now using that little thread that I can see, I'm going to do that a couple more times. So I'm going to stick my needle through that thread. I've got a loop right here that I can stick my needle through, pull it tight. So that's 2, and just for lots of security, I'm going to do one more. Okay, when I pull that needle, I end up with a loop right here. I'm going to stick my needle through and pull it tight. And then I can trim my thread close to my knot, and my hole is stitched closed.